All right, back on MLB Tonight. So a look ahead now. Obviously, nobody elected the 2021 class. So looking ahead to 2022, and these are the potential first-time eligible candidates. And so some interesting names on there. Bill and I were just chatting a little bit about the Tim Lincecum there. But let's talk about, there's some other names I want to get to first. So Carlos, I'm going to let you go first. David Ortiz and Alex Rodriguez. What do you think about their chances? And not just next year, but just overall, because obviously both, have some sort of tie to potential, PEDs. A-Rod, we know that. Ortiz's name ended up allegedly, reportedly, was part of the report that came out. And so your thoughts on it. Obviously went on to have a wonderful career.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at David Ortiz, I thought immediately he was going to be, he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. That remains to be seen. We keep on talking about what is your criteria. I mean, this is one of the most remarkable careers ever. The way that he built himself into an absolute force throughout the years. The story is absolutely exemplary. Most definitely an inspiration to many young Dominican players, I'll tell you that, me being from the Dominican Republic. So I think he gets in. Looking how things are going, Alex is going to have a tough time, but you cannot argue with those numbers. That's why I keep on going back to the fact, what criteria are you using? And the idea that we have over 400 voters is key here, because it's the consensus. You know that there's many different criteria, and at the end of the day, you say, okay, I am satisfied with the result, because this was not just only 10 people deciding. There were 400 voters doing so.
Well, and Bill, I mean, to Carlos's point, I mean, guys like Alex Rodriguez, Manny Ramirez is already on the ballot. They actually were suspended. Yeah. There were rules in place, and they were suspended for big chunks of seasons, whereas Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens were not, because those rules necessarily weren't in place. But they were never suspended for alleged PED use. So there is some demarcation there.
Well, I think that Carlos's point is the conversation that's going to swirl in a lot of those areas is, was there actual fire? Because we can talk about there's smoke, there's fire.
Right.
Was there actual fire? That's going to be a conversation that goes on. How much smoke was swirling around somebody else? Because we believe there was a fire somewhere. We just couldn't prove it. And if we saw a puff of smoke, maybe that's going to be on a voter's mind and say, you know what, that was a puff of smoke. Maybe that was just a spark, and we're not going to go to the fire level right there. So I sit in a situation where the guys that have fire, it bothers me because they were already, in my mind, better than everybody else. And that's where I sit. I'm not a voter, don't have a vote and everything else, but I believe that there's some guys that are going to have a tough time getting in, regardless of the numbers, because of the amount of fire that surrounds them.
All right, Mike Martin, our director, I'm going to ask you to put that list back up of the potential first-year eligibles. And, Bill, I want to go to you first. Carlos, study that, because I'm going to ask you to pick a name here of who you think is not necessarily an under-the-radar guy, but we've talked about A-Rod and Ortiz. I want a name for you who you think maybe might end up in the Hall. But I want to go to you on Tim Lincecum.
That's the first one that jumped out at me and smacked me on that list as a guy that gets in, because I talk about the guys that differentiated themselves from everybody else. And when that dude was right, and he's winning Cy Youngs and going on to the World Series and helping the Gigantes win, the dude was different, right? And he had some stuff for you. And I think he was a separator. So that's the name that jumped out at me the most on that list when I looked at it.
Yeah, two Cy Young
It's a pretty good list, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
I will say that.
2 Cy Young Awards in his first 3 seasons for Lincecum. I know it's putting the pressure on you there a little bit. And by the way, if you don't think necessarily, right now you're ready to make a call, that's certainly fair too. They get 10 years on the ballot if they can get 5% or more.
One of the things that we must state is the fact that all these voters, right, the writers, the homework that they put in. I mean, we're talking about Rosenthal and how much they just dive into the numbers. They really want to make a responsible vote and responsible decision. So I don't want to just go ahead and throw a name, but if I may, because I'm not a voter. Right. And I can just tell you on the eye test, when I look at Mark Teixeira, I mean, I haven't really, I did not dive into
the numbers yet, right.
But all I know is, Rip, every single time I was on the opposite end of the team playing against the Rays, when he was with the Yankees or with the Texas Rangers, he absolutely raked us. it always seems like he just went placard on us every single time we played him. So my memory of Mark Teixeira playing against him was, this guy's just dominating. Now, I would have to dive deep into the numbers, Fran, but as a fan, and as an opponent, I'm like, man, this guy is most definitely worthy of consideration.
Well, and to your point, I mean, look, we've talked about it before, and you've said, look, I mean, you shouldn't necessarily, as a player, you don't need the number. You just look at a guy and you could, that guy's a Hall of Famer. This guy's really good,
that's where it's leaving me, because I'm removed from the list of playing against some of these guys, right? It was easy for me to say, okay, I faced Nolan Ryan. Yeah, that's different.
Yeah, right.
I faced Randy Johnson.
Right.
That's different.
Right.
You know what I mean? So when you see those guys playing against Paul Molitor and Robin Yount as a young guy coming up to the big leagues against the Brewers, you're going, these dudes are not real. Right? So there's something where I've been removed from that. Of the time that I've been out of the game. There's one thing about that list, though, that's put up there. We'll be talking about it for a while, because every one of them's over 5%.
Yeah,
we ain't got to worry
absolutely.
about that. That list right there is going to be talked about
Fran,
for a while.
I got to say, I'm getting confirmation right here. Mark Teixeira, 409 home runs. Oof. 5th all-time among switch hitters.
Okay, all right.
So there's something there.
That's helping your argument.
Yes.